Good morning, 7:30 in the morning. It's Saturday, September 28th, the last weekend of September, and then we're heading into October. I love October because huge changes. We really get into fall and start to get a little hint of winter sometimes towards the end of the month, but a lot going on in October. But as we get into today's weather, I mean, it's all about Helene and the aftermath of Helene and just the devastating consequences of all of that rain in the mountains yesterday. Just terrible flooding. I think the death toll now is well over 40, and a lot of it happening yesterday in the mountains of North Carolina into Tennessee. Just terrible. Today, here are the hazards across the country. It's the heat still in the southwest and along the Colorado River and into California. So excessive heat warnings continue, I believe, really into tomorrow. So just hot here. We'll show you more on that here in a little bit. We've got some wind up there in northern Montana with wind advisories, high wind watch. And then you get into the plains of Wyoming into Nebraska, red flag warnings here with dry conditions, windy conditions, high fire danger. Heat advisory down around Miami. And then we're still dealing with flooding for the mountains of North Carolina into Virginia, parts of Tennessee. Just absolutely devastating here. And, river flooding still a concern all through the southeast into the mid-Atlantic with all of that rain from Helene. How much rain, you ask? Well, a lot. And this doesn't even include yesterday afternoon. So this is the last 3 days, ending at 7 o'clock yesterday morning. So not even including all day yesterday's rain. But you can see in the dark brown, 10, 15 inches of rain falling in the mountains of North Carolina, South Carolina, even into Georgia. They had a record 2-day rainfall event for Atlanta. I think it was 11 and a half inches, 11.4. It's devastating flooding even in the city of Atlanta. And it just caused all kinds of problems from Tennessee, North Carolina especially, but even South Carolina and the mountains of Georgia. So let's take a look. I did save some stuff on my Twitter feed just to give you an idea. This is Boone in North Carolina. The before and after. The flooding just went through there. I'm sorry, Chimney Rock Village in North Carolina. So you see the after, just sediment, debris all through town, buildings half buried, and some buildings looking this direction gone. Just devastating for that community. As we look further into the feed here, this is eastern Tennessee. These floodwaters rose very quickly, trapping residents. And you can see all that water just raging and filling up this person's house. Just terrible. This is Chuckney, Tennessee, in south central Tennessee. You see a manufactured home floating down the river. I don't even think that was supposed to be a river. That's a cornfield there. Then we look at Asheville, North Carolina, very hard hit. This is an aerial view there. They're saying worst flooding since 1940. So that's quite a few years, 80 years ago. So, I mean, it does happen rarely, but it takes a hurricane to drop all this water into the mountains, and this is the logical result, and it just devastating for people. Here we go, Gatlinburg. We've got some raging waters here, flood waters here. This is I-40 along the Tennessee-North Carolina state line. A part of I-40 washed out here, and so traffic is stopped, and they did close the interstate. And here's another look at that. Interstate 40 closed all traffic in Cook County due to flooding in Tennessee and North Carolina. And you can see just how those raging waters were eating away at the roadway and that they've closed the road as a result. This is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Just beautiful area. You can see how just beautiful this is, but obviously raging waters here. I don't know if that bridge made it through. Nice waterfall. And like I said, you can appreciate the beauty, but this devastating flooding is just that devastating. This is another picture of Asheville. Here's another one of Asheville. A semi container floating down the road, slamming into a U-Haul that's stuck in floodwaters here. Just craziness. This is King Street, downtown Boone. And then this is a dramatic rescue that took place, and everyone here was rescued. But you had over 50 patients and staff stranded on top of a hospital in Irwin, Tennessee. That's how fast the floodwaters came up. And you see the hospital buried 8 feet of water, maybe 6 to 8 feet of water, and everyone has to evacuate to the roof. The happy ending is that they were indeed rescued. So just crazy scenes across the mountains in Tennessee and North Carolina, especially hard hit. And our prayers go out to them, and hopefully they get the relief that they need. And I'm sure that will happen, but the loss of life is devastating as well. And still lingering rain showers in this area as our post-tropical cyclone Helene has merged with our low, centered pretty much Kentucky, eastern Tennessee. And around that is where we're going to see our rain showers today. Obviously nothing like we've seen before. The storm is raining itself out, and I'm not saying there won't be any rain, but it won't be nearly as bad as it was yesterday and the day before. Some thunderstorms left over for Florida, and then the Pacific Northwest, we're looking at some rain there in western Oregon, western Washington. The temperature anomalies for tomorrow, so these are your highs, a departure from normal and much above normal for the northern plains, and quite a bit below average for Tennessee into Kentucky, southern Indiana, and even northern Alabama into Tennessee and Georgia. So 15, 20 degrees below average for highs with that rain-cooled air. And the desert southwest, quite hot, 15 to 20 degrees above average for southern Arizona. How does that translate into highs? Well, very high. This is why we have that extreme heat warning. Phoenix at 111 today. Oh my goodness. And again, that's, about 15 degrees above average. So it should be in the upper 90s this time of year, which is still hot, but this is a little bit on the crazy side. And you see mid 90s in the central plains, the northern plains, transitioning to 80s as you get into Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and then back over to mid 90s by the time you get into Houston, 60s, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio Valley, and then 70s to low 80s, mid-Atlantic, and then back to the 70s in the Northeast. Lows tomorrow, very comfortable. Pacific Northwest, a little on the chilly side, 45 for Eugene. But we see a lot of 50s on this map as well. 80s to 92 to start the day in the Southwest tomorrow. 92 for Phoenix for a low. Texas in the 60s and 70s, 60s for the Central Plains, and some 70s to start the day tomorrow for the Dakotas into eastern Montana, and then lows back into the 50s in the Great Lakes for lows tomorrow morning. The surface tomorrow still shows more rain coming down from our low centered around Kentucky. Again, not on the heavy side. Well, I'll show you that map too. So there will be some heavier rain, but further north. So the problem areas for the last couple of days won't be nearly as bad as that rain does kind of head more towards the north. And then for the Pacific Northwest, we're looking at a little bit of snow maybe for the northern Cascades. And we do see a critical fire danger for South Dakota with those very dry conditions, very warm conditions, and we'll throw in some wind. Temperature anomalies for tomorrow. This is how much above average for the northern plains. 30 to 35 degrees above average for North Dakota, getting into South Dakota. So very warm. Still cool around our low in the southeast and Tennessee Valley and Ohio Valley. And cooling off a little bit for the Pacific Northwest, especially northern Washington into British Columbia. Those translate into highs in the 50s, 60s for the Northwest. But still low to mid 90s, Central California, still over 100, Desert Southwest, 80s and 90s for Texas, 80s, Kansas, 90s for the Central Plains. Oh, we're talking mid 90s, near 100, North Dakota, South Dakota. Meanwhile, 60s around our low and rain and up into the Northeast. So, quite a bit cooler there with the moisture from the low. Here is the rainfall for the next 2 days. And so, there will be some heavy rain, up to 2 inches for parts of Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia into Maryland, and even, peaking above that 2 inches, maybe 2.5 for some. And some heavy rain down there for the central Gulf Coast of Florida. Some cleanup going on in that area, but the hardest hit was up towards the Big Bend of Florida, which is going to stay mainly dry for the next 2 days on the rainfall. Taking a peek at early next week, this is Monday's surface. Still some showers for Tennessee, North Carolina, northward, and still some scattered showers and storms, Florida. A little bit of rain there in northern Montana, but look at that cold front through North Dakota, South Dakota. So you're going from 30 degrees above average in this area by Monday, a few degrees below average. So that's a very nice about face for the northern plains, as that cold front hopefully will make its way here into Iowa. We're looking for temperatures in the 80s, well into the 80s the next few days, mid 80s. And then our Tuesday high is supposed to be 65 where I live. So hopefully the front will make it this far south and east into western Iowa. But still much above average as you get into the central plains, southern plains, and even the desert southwest, about 10 degrees above average, not 15 like it was, so a little bit of relief. And still cool around the low, but not nearly as cool, almost back to average temperatures. Let's take a quick look at what's going on with our GFS model initialized this morning. Here's our low, still raining, mainly in Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. Still some rain back here, but not into the mountains in Tennessee. So more central Tennessee, Nashville area. And as we go through time today, we see that low not moving a whole lot. The rain staying mostly on the light side and mainly on the Kentucky and northward side and the Ohio Valley. That low moves off to the east, taking the rain showers with it to the mid-Atlantic. This takes us into tomorrow evening. And so as we continue through the weekend, the rain and the big problem areas in the mountains yesterday, just not happening very much. So a chance for those waters to rush downstream and for those rivers to get back towards normal slowly. A little bit of rain here on Monday into Tuesday, and then moving up the coast a little bit. So those rain showers moving more towards New Jersey, but some lingering showers on the backside, not very heavy. Pretty quiet across the country as we get into mid next week. This takes us into Wednesday. We see a line of showers here moving through New York State, into Vermont and New Hampshire as we get into Wednesday afternoon now. And so, things are pretty quiet around the country by the middle of the week, even Thursday. We're starting to see some showers increase across the Texas Gulf Coast. And it's way too early to say anything about this, but since it's showing up on the map, we're going to say something about this. We could be dealing with another possible hurricane moving into the Gulf. This is Friday around noon. So we'll keep an eye on this area and to see if this really comes true, and if we have another hurricane to deal with. This would be more towards Texas, Louisiana, at least if this forecast comes true. Maybe lifting further northward into Mississippi. This has us into next weekend. Now on the other end of our map, we see a little bit of a snowstorm moving into northwestern Montana into Idaho. This is Saturday morning, so we're getting a little bit far out there to have certainty, but this just gives you an idea of where we might be. A hurricane hitting New Orleans, perhaps, and a snowstorm moving through Montana into Wyoming as we go through next weekend with more heavy rain for the southeast where they don't need it, and some snow for North Dakota where it's going to be upper 90s, today and tomorrow. So, that's how the weather is. It can change quickly, and that's why we update it every day here so you can see what's going on. Now, again, this is quite a bit, this is past a week out in the future. So these are the trends. We could be looking at much cooler air here by next weekend, but we'll see if we get consistency with the model runs over the next few days. If we do actually have a hurricane moving back into the Gulf, back into the southeast, and if we have this cold front with some rain moving into the plains by Sunday night. So keep it right here. We'll keep you going. We'll keep you updated as we go. But that's kind of an early preview of how it might look as of right now. All right, let's take a look at the next 6 to 10 days. This is October 3rd through October 7th. Still with a focus of that heat over Arizona, over the Southwest, over the Intermountain West, and then the rest of the West, and dipping down through Texas and the Southeast. The rest of the country in the white there, that's equal chances of above or below average temperatures. And for your precipitation along the Southeast, especially Florida and along the Texas Gulf Coast. And then the dry stuff is really the western 2/3 of the country. So just crazy, prayers and help coming to those in the mountains of eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina, especially as those folks begin the cleanup from that mess. And then we're still dealing with a big mess in Florida. That storm surge did a ton of damage there, and even some loss of life from flooding in Georgia as well. Things are quieting down, so for things to get back to normal, and then we'll keep an eye on another system maybe a week to 10 days from now. So we will keep you posted here as we go. I do hope you have a wonderful weekend. That's certainly my plan, and I really appreciate you tuning in. The Weather Mike will see you tomorrow.